It is time for us to check in with Chris Dimakos. He is our CJAD 800 legal contributor. Chris, interesting announcement this week. Actually, a couple of interesting announcements in tech, but let's focus on this. Microsoft has announced that it has new tech coming out next month on Teams, which is, I'm sure, something that a lot of people use now at work, that will allow the employer to locate where the employee is logging on from, whether they're in the office, whether they're at home, whether they're on vacation on the beach. Look, up until now, right, people did this at the beginning because employers couldn't figure this out. You knew they would eventually catch up. I know there was one technology that actually, if you weren't sitting in front of your computer but logged in, and they would just tell by your mouse tracking whether you were actually there or not. But this is next level. So with respect to this, Microsoft is saying this just simply allows an employer to know where an employee is so they can be, quote, more productive, unquote. However, you'd expect, critics say all this does is let employers spy on you and catch employees who are in fact not in the office or pretending to be. So what are we making of this? And have there been cases like this where someone challenges this?
Right. And what's so important here is the narrative behind what Microsoft is saying and what some of the major CEOs are saying about this stuff. Because many people are concerned about AI and replacement of employees and loss of privacy. And what they're saying, if you hear, I heard the CEO of Amazon this week talking about 14,000 jobs being cut, not because of financial reasons, not because of trying to become more, but just because of what they said was culture. And, they didn't need to, but they wanted to, they hired a lot since the pandemic, and they wanted to basically, recycle whatever it was, the layers that they created after COVID. So what's happening here, what people should understand is, what's happening here is, companies are trying to get more and more data and more analysis, and this is another step towards having more feedback, more information, more data on the employee and their performance and how reliable they are and how present they are. So, and the number one question I ask everybody when they come to see me, they come with a problem, and I say, well, how do you want to win this? I want to win, so how do you want to win your problem? Like, what's a win for you? And the most common answer I get is, well, I don't want to get fired. I want them to be forced to keep me on board. And unfortunately, the answer to that question is, it's impossible. If an employer wants to let you go, they are going to let you go. They might have to pay a lot of money because it was an unjust dismissal, but you can't stop them from taking the decision to let you go. So to answer your question, Aaron, what do we make of this? This is another another new reality for employees, especially those that have been working hybrid or working from home, and they've been basing their life decisions around that. This is something else they're going to have to deal with now. Now employers are going to know exactly when you are in the office and when you're not in the office. And if you say, you know what, I don't want to deal with traffic, I don't want to deal with the snow today, I'm just going to log in from home. Nobody will know the difference. I'm on my laptop. I'm logging in. Well, now they're going to know, and it's something that they're going to have to deal with and navigate with. But if you remember this, if you remember that you can't stop an employer from taking a decision to let you go, you can only maximize what the damages are because it wasn't just. Then you understand how to deal with problems as they come up and how to answer questions from your employer. It's important to understand that dynamic, because once you do, the rules change a bit, and you can become more strategic in your navigating through these problems and these issues.
As I hear you describe this, I mean, the one thing that I think of right off the bat is if you've been doing this or managed to get away with it, now that this changes, assuming your employer goes ahead and employs the system, you're going to get caught lying if you in fact do, and that in and of itself could be a reason for dismissal, right?
It could be, absolutely. And it's not even a question of dismissal. What I foresee happening here is not so much dismissal. It's, well, you're not getting your bonus. It's, we're not giving you a raise, or okay, you haven't been present as much time. We're paying you to be in the office. And you were only in the office for 34 out of the 40 hours. What if you show up late? Before it was, well, you have to send an email, and if they saw you, well, now it's, you didn't log on until this time. We're gonna deduct your pay for that amount of time that you missed. So what's happening here is there's a lot of automation taking place, where in the past it would be, you'd have a conversation with your manager. Sorry, I was in traffic. Won't happen again. To now just being a spreadsheet where here are all the minutes that you missed while you were late coming in, 6 out of the 30 days in this month. So what's happening now is technology is becoming more and more, detailed in your performance, and the employer has a lot more information on how your month went at the place of work. So what I foresee happening is there's going to be a lot of conversations about that. There's going to be a lot of, hey, listen, I don't want you to deduct my pay. It was a one-time thing, please. There's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't see it being, jump right to termination or not. It's more a question of trying to manage the employees and discipline them through the information they're going to be getting now with all this new tech.
Yeah, and of course, there's nothing to preclude you from talking to your employer beforehand if you know that the policy is going to be changing or they're asking everyone to come back to work and saying, "Here, this is what I was doing." You can always try to negotiate something without just finding out you're working from home. I mean, that might be step one.
Right, and that's the big one. Like what you just said right now is the best thing to do is when you get this notice to return to work, or 5 days or 3 days, and because of the decisions you made based on what the reality was for the last 2 or 3 years with COVID, well, there's an opportunity there to say, well, look, I mean, you're gonna have to give me some sort of accommodation here because it's not instant. I mean, the decisions I made were, sometimes it's as big as buying a home in a different location, and there's a lot of travel that's required. So you can negotiate that. Can you stop an employer from saying, if you don't come back to work, I'm going to let you go? The probability of stopping them to do that is not very high. It's very low. Can you get compensated for that kind of decision? Yes, absolutely. But, to stop an employer from letting you go, taking that decision, is very, very difficult. It's really the exception to the exception. So that's what you have when you go into these. I always say, always take a look at what the risks are with every approach you take. You want to sit down and think things through, understand what the risks are before you take a position and you deal with your employer. But that's a great example of saying, okay, you want me to come back to work? This is new to me. The last 2 or 3 years I've been doing this. I need some level of accommodation here. It could be time. It could be hybrid work. It could be a number of different things. It could be a change to my position. A whole bunch of things can come up, but the listener knows what's best for them. But understand that these things will come up, and you have to deal with them. Understanding what if there's an impasse, can the employer let me go ultimately? And if you're not prepared for that, well, then you have to try to adjust as much as you can, because that's always a possibility.
Last question, quick, just with respect to, people who found themselves in a situation like this, have you seen any cases like this end up in court where an employer simply won't bend and where an employer says, wait a sec, this is what I was doing and now I can't seem to get anywhere?
Absolutely. And the way the court the first thing they do is they look at the employment contract, and many times there's nothing there. And then they look at the factual, what's been going on, what would a reasonable employee expect to be take place at this point after having 2 or 3 years with the current conditions, and whatever is reasonable is the way the court moves forward with this. But there's no question an employer has the right and the discretion to call back their employees to work.
Chris Dimakos, CJAD 800 legal contributor. Chris, thanks so much.
Thanks, Aaron.
I'm Luke Wilson. Join me each week for Film Never Lies. Since retiring from the NFL, I've had a lot on my mind, and now I've got my own show. So if you're tired of lazy takes, if you want honest conversations, join us each week. Film Never Lies, available on all TSN platforms and the iHeartRadio app.